I am back from Nottingham and boy howdy do I have some things to talk about. Welcome to War Games on Toast, all of you lovely people. It's me, it's Toast. How are you this wonderful Wednesday? A couple of weeks ago I attended the Ferocious Gnarlwood Event at Warhammer World, and needless to say, it was one heck of an event. Players from around the world, players of all ages, attended and had a fantastic time, and today that is what we are going to talk about. Now, I am not a maths guy. I don't really do stats and breakdowns in that kind of way. That's beyond my big dumb unga bunga brain. I am, at my heart, simply a rambler. If you want more of a statistical breakdown of the event, I wholeheartedly recommend heading over to Off-Meta Musings channel and checking out his breakdown of the Ferocious Gnarlwood. It's a fantastic video. He has two amazing guests. But before you do that, finish watching mine, you know? Let's share the love, don't just run away. I'll put the link in the description, but hold tight, don't run away just yet. But before we get into all of that, please consider leaving a like, a comment and subscribing, as that helps me fight against that dastardly YouTube algorithmic demon. And if you want to help in a more tangible way, then please consider joining my Patreon or my YouTube members, like all of these wonderful people on screen now. You'll get access to additional video content, monthly giveaways, and more. But with all of that out of the way, let's get on with the show. So I think it's wise to start with what I actually brought to the event. Last time I was at Warhammer World, I rocked the cunningly brutal Cruel Boys with some rather funky allies. This time around, I decided to go with my one true love, the Vulcan Flame Seekers. These short kings were my jam since day one, and in a kill-focused pack that was expected prior to this event and what ultimately ended up being a kill-focused pack, having a super killy warband just made a lot of sense. Now, I brought a Runefather with Bukaz, a Drothmaster, a Droth Blood Thane, two Scalebreakers, both with Bukaz, a Runelord, and a Blood Rack Medusa. This list had a little bit of everything. All the dwarfs can kill effectively. The Runelord gives me strength if I need it. He also buffs actions on death and practically wins objective games thanks to Over My Dead Body, especially in Hidden Vault, which does appear in this pack. The Medusa has nets, a self-buff, can also buff its strength as standard all the way to 7, is fast, has loads of attacks, and deals very high damage as standard. She's a bit of a beast and does basically everything all at once all the time, and on top of that she also is durable. 35 wounds is a lot of wounds, and has range 2 in her spear. She's just a really good pick all round. This list is a little bit small at 7 models, but as you will see later on, that was a fairly common number to hit. But this list does pack a lot of punch. It can slingshot with the Drothmaster, and that Runelord basically gives this warband a objective weight of a 9-man warband on objectives, pushing all the way to an 11-man if you were to double use that ability and stay still, which is very, very nice. Before we go into how I placed and all that jazz, let's dive into all the missions we had to play so you've got a bit of an idea of what the event looked like for everybody else. This ain't just about me and my list after all. So this event had us brawling over 5 games, making it quite the lengthy affair. Players were absolutely flagging it by the end. Their brains were melted, they were running out of energy. It'd been a long day, but the mission pack seemed designed around that inevitability. And we'll get into that now really. But game 1, we had Treasure Hunters. This is likely the best treasure mission Games Workshop have in rotation at Warhammer World right now, and even then, it's god-awful. In theory, having 5 treasure tokens should make it more balanced than a 1-token mission. In theory. In practice, this is just a race to the middle. The person who gets that token can very easily control the game, and if you get that token first, there is a massive chance you've automatically won the game. And if you have a warband designed to do that, say, I don't know, a teleporting Sylvaneth, an Ephelim, or a Creed of Flame Medusa, then you have almost guaranteed a win here. One thing that helped balance that out slightly, at least in my game, was the copious amounts of terrain that forced me and my opponent to work really hard to get into the middle. Most tables at Warhammer World, in fact, were packed with terrain, but I am not sure how many results were impacted by having to finagle to the center, and I assume if they had to, slower movement 3 warbands really struggled. So I'm not really sure there. Game 2 was no quarter, and man, I hate no quarter. Nearly every game ends in a draw, and what a surprise. A massive chunk of the players got a draw in this mission. Did I get a draw? Well, about that, despite my ardent and vocal declarations prior to the event, during the event, and even right now after the event, I got a major loss here. A lot of factors contributed to that, but in the end, none of that matters. It was a great game, and I will go into that later, but no, not everyone drawed, and I absolutely did not draw this one. We came back from lunch, we had some drinks, we had hydrated, we had caloric intake, our brains were once again lucid, and we went into brutal conquest, and brutal conquest is all about getting kills, but only kills with one guy, and racking up monstrous damage tallies. The catch is, if that one guy dies, your tally doesn't count if the game ends. This means players are constantly trying to murder everything with one guy, whilst keeping that one guy alive. And if they fail that second part, oh no, it's a mad dash to get another champion set up. Throw in instant death if you are too close to the edge, and this game is always fun, if not exactly balanced. For example, if you have a net, you can absolutely just net a lad coming in on the board edge and they die instantly. Did I do that? Maybe, but not every warband will be able to do well here simply because you have to land your kill with an attack action to become the champion, and then after that any damage done is counted, but to become the champion you must kill with an attack action, and not every warband has the capacity to do that. Ability heavy warbands like the Royal Beast Flayers will really struggle here because you have like one guy in faction who can do damage and the rest are ghouls. So unless you have allies, you will really struggle in that instance. Or even low damage warbands like Cities of Sigmar who excel in that counter control zone. They might also really struggle unless they factored that in their list building process and had something able to kill on its own. But then we move on to game 4, and the event is starting to come to a close. It's time to unleash the least mentally strenuous missions of the event, starting with Reaper. Reaper is a wildly imbalanced mission, but it's also a whole lot of fun. The nuance comes in with when you get your kills and how you get models into kill range in preparation for easy points in later turns, and how you balance your models dying and then not wasting kills on an inevitable failure in trying to catch up that turn to get a better second turn or third turn. There's a lot of nuance to it in theory, but it's also a bit naff. Getting too many kills too early can absolutely leave you unable to score later on, but ultimately, despite all of that like nuance and maybe even intrigue, I don't know, it is just a kill mission, and if you aren't a killy warband, you will really struggle. Being a Flameseeker though, I really excelled in this mission and had a blast, but more on that in a smidge. The final game we got to play was Hidden Vault, and you might think, wow, an objective mission at the end of a tournament when everyone's tired? That's terrible, Toast. Nah man, Hidden Vault is objective mission only in name and description alone. Hidden Vault is a mad dash to the middle where everyone dies. It is the easiest mission to play simply because you just have to smash things and it's fun. You don't have to think. It's nearly always the central objective. Just go there and punch stuff, right? And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was just happy I finally got to get the Rune Lord to do anything. This mission nearly always ends up being a scrap in the middle, and that's exactly what happened in 99% of the games. How it works is turn 2, one guy turns off one objective, and on turn 3, the other guy turns off the other one. And then that just leaves the middle, which is usually the case, and the person who holds the objective at the end wins. It's super simple, and it's a great way to end the event, right? When everyone's tired, just mad dash middle is just the best way to be. My overall thoughts on this pack are actually very, very positive. I am no fan of no quota, but every other mission, it was like they picked the cream of the crop from the core book and tried to put in a little bit of everything and then ordered them in such a way that it flowed perfectly with the mental capability of the players who were slowly becoming exhausted over the event. Having more complex missions like Treasure Hunters or Brutal Conquest slightly earlier in the event and complete no-brainers like Hidden Vault at the end meant there was this wonderful flow. Top marks for Games Workshop for organising a really solid pack within the boundaries of Core Mission plus White Dwarf, which is not the best of boundaries to set for yourself. I think the natural progression from talking about what the missions are is how I did in those missions and then how I performed, so we're waiting it. We'll go into that now. Right off the bat, 4 out of 5 of these games were absolutely outstanding, so I had a great time. 1 was awful and 1 was questionable at the end, but we'll get into that. Game 1, that was a very dominant victory. Turn 1, I was against Untamed Beasts. I took the center treasure straight away with the Medusa. I ran away. He had some tricks though. Being Untamed Beasts, he could just pull my Medusa back into his guise, but he couldn't pull me far enough, which meant I got lucky and could just create a flame and then whip my lad miles away, and then he was safe for the rest of the game. I then castled all my treasure tokens behind a wall of dwarfs, and we endured the beast horde for the next 3 turns, and we grabbed the win. The most interesting moment though was the impression that the Medusa was a weak model. Now I never go into a game and not explain what my warband does, because Flameseekers are kind of new and Medusas are kind of unusual. So I did say that Medusa is very powerful, but this wasn't necessarily listened to because of how she played. People get an impression based on how you use a model as to how good they are. So the Medusa being fast and running away instead of getting into combat and scrapping left the impression, despite my attempts to stymie that, was that she was one of the weaker models, or she was just a fast moving thing that couldn't really defend herself as well. So when he did get the opportunity to break through the dwarf wall and get to her, he was under the impression that she would not murder that thing instantly. And very quickly did it become apparent that she was actually the most powerful model on that board by far. She was just being sneaky to win the game. So that was quite interesting. Game 2 was against French YouTuber WizGame TV. Link in the description, either down there or up here somewhere, I'm not really sure. He ran a very interesting Cities of Sigmar list that I played really badly into. On paper, this should have been an absolute walk. In execution, it was absolutely terrible. At this point in the day, I actually hadn't had anything to eat or drink at all, and I'd been up for about 7 hours. So my brain was not on point, and I made so many mistakes game 1, game 2. Silly things like not realizing he had a rampage on his Achillean King, and then not netting it was like obvious. Why wouldn't you do that, right? Or having models too close to deployment zones and getting killed by ogres. It is what it is, right? Little mistakes, but turn 3, turn 4, brain started to kick back into gear, started to do some things, we managed to pull it back to a draw. Then turn 4 is a bit strange. Turn 4, there was some major sequencing mistakes by my opponent that almost cost him the whole game. But the ever charitable Toast let him take the old takesy-backsies, which let him kill the last model he needed to win no quota and nab the win. Was it a mistake to do that? Maybe, but we'll chalk that up to good sportsmanship and move on. It's a tenuous balance as to when you are being a good sportsman and when you're being a bit sweaty, and I don't know which side of the coin this falls on. Was I a mug? Was I a good sportsman? Would I have been sweaty if I said no to takesy-backsy? There was a fairly large takesy-backsy. Who knows? But we'll move on. Game 3 was against a fellow Flameseeker player, and my god, this was the stupidest game I'm going to say in the whole event. I think when you compare, if you ask anyone else, I don't think anyone else has a game quite as ludicrously stupid. In a good way. This was a loss, only minor, but it was a loss. What ended up happening was, we both know what Flameseekers do. So at no point did we want to get into close combat, because we knew the second we did that, things would start to die en masse. So what we did, We spent the whole game staying 8 inches away and throwing axes. The whole game. There was very few close combats that kicked off. Notably, the Medusa did a little bit of close combat and a bit of netting shenanigans to get some cheeky, brutal conquest stuff off. But for the vast majority of actions, it was, we're going to throw axes and that's it. And it was quick, it was silly, and I loved every second of it. It was really close too. It came down to about 2 points difference. It was just great, man. It was a really fun game. It was just all axes all the time, and I want more of this in my life. More Flameseeker players in mirror matches should just stand still and throw axes and see who has the better throwing arm. It's a great time. But Game 4. If we say that Game 3 was the best game of the event for me, Game 4 still manages to trump it as the one that stands out the most, which is sad because it was by far the worst game I had. I would go as far as saying it was the worst game of Warcry I've ever had. I'm not going to go into specifics here, but there was a lot of bad sportsmanship going on, a lot of accidental wound counting goofs, and a lot of other things that really soured this game. On the plus side, the game was full of Flameseeker dominance. We're talking things like a skill breaker 1v1ing a full health mega boss on turn 1. Top marks if you can figure out how I did that. The Medusa skewering brutes left, right and centre, a massive 31 damage berserk rampage by the Thane. I mean, this game was just a showcase for the unfathomable damage potential of the Flameseekers, and it was awesome. Iron Jaws don't often lose Reaper, but in this case, they almost got tabled. It was brutal beyond belief, and it was a good way to end a rather painful play experience. Can't complain there. Game 5 was my second favourite game of the event. It was Hidden Vault, Flameseekers versus One Box Questor Soul Sworn. This game was wild. The amount of nonsense the Medusa got up to was comical. It was this wonderful, I do this, net, followed by, ha ha ha, you activated my trap card, and then that lasted the whole game. And that trap card was, I'm going to use my quad to teleport my netted Questor onto the objective anyway, and that was the whole game. This guy had 3 quads, and he teleported 3 times, and he always teleported the netted guy. So it was just bonkers. The big play at the end was, of course, sneaking the rune load onto the objective and then making himself count as 3 models and then just winning the game. The most impactful play was how I was killing the Questor. Now, I killed 4 Questor in this match, so it was quite brutal on the Flameseekers mulching through Stormcast armor. But when Questor die, they do this wonderful thing where they go, I'm dead, but now me buddy gets to move or attack. And this is incredible as a reaction. But there's this wonderful little line. It's not even a line, it's a word in their reaction, which says melee, which means that you can only use that reaction if they're killed when they're bonked on the coconut with a stick. Now, what Vulcan Flameseekers can do is they have these wonderful things called throwing axes, and they can throw them into close combat. So whenever they were, now it's unlikely a Flameseeker will kill a 20 wound model in one swing. They will get them very low though, as in within the 4 wounds, 3 wound zone of you're about to die. When this happens, it was Ignite Weapon Throwing Axe to finish him off. Every time, and he never got to react, and did it feel like bullshit? A little bit. Was it rather funny? Also, yeah, and we both laughed because it was ludicrous just how that rules interaction worked. But ultimately, I got the major win because I think I only lost 1 model, 1 or 2, and in the end, this led me to go 3 and 2. So it was 3 major victories, 1 major loss, and 1 minor loss, and this led me to landing 15th place overall, which is about in the top 30-ish%. I'm a smidge disappointed that my second game was such a failure in terms of my piloting. In hindsight, I could have very easily went to a draw. if I'd used my tools better early on and didn't just have a massive goof and then goofed so often. Definitely recommend drinking water and eating food during the event, during any event, and that is a lesson well learned and a lesson I bestow upon you, because running on 0 calories in a highly intense competitive event is really stupid. A mistake I will not do again, and a mistake I implore you avoid. But enough about my failings at the event. Let's look at the lads who made it all the way to the top of the ladder and secured that coveted podium position and that wonderful glass trophy. In 3rd place, we have Anan from Off Meta Musings, once again coming in with his Hunters of Huanxi to a stellar finish. Anan is the face of Hunters of Huanxi, so much so my wife has even drawn a picture of him as a skink, and it is on screen now. His tireless pursuit of perfection within the relatively flawed core of Hunters of Huanxi has well and truly paid off. It pays off all the time. It has paid off once again. His list consists of Calthea Zantor, rocking +1 damage, Haskell Hexbane, a Skink Alpha, who is quite simply just a tax, Quiet Pock with +1 strength, and 5 Huanxi's Claws. This list is all about moving fast, keeping away from things, and using Calthea to move things around even more. And of course, Quiet Pock nuking the planet with his explosive crossbow. And after speaking with Anan during and after the event, Calthea with +1 damage was very successful. Calthea is a very expensive model who tends to just be a support platform on a semi-durable, okay, offensively Stormcast Eternal body. The Blessing, though, elevated her to the next level. She became a serious melee threat thanks to her innate high volume of attacks, combined with her now improved 3-4 damage lineup, which was really cool. I'm a massive fan of tight profiles like this, and Calthea being 3-4 puts her right up my alley, and I'm a huge fan of that. Pock was, of course, another star of the show. This lad pretty much dominated every game from what I gathered, and I am not surprised. Pock is a staple in many of my lists, and whilst I am not going to say that I shot Anan so many times with Pock in the past that I eventually incepted the idea into his noggin, I am not saying that. And one last standout is, of course, Haskell Hexbane, who is just an amazing bundle of stats for his cost. And apparently his triple managed to do some amazing things this event, turning Haskell into a little bit of a blender, which is always really cool. Looking at this pack, it's clear to see why Anan did so well here. Besides his outstanding piloting skills, he has enough damaging and nimble pieces to take control over the board and also compete in kill missions. And anything remotely objective based is right up his alley with movement 6 skinks. The ability to also ignore terrain and have bonus moves from Calthea meant that even the comparatively packed boards of Warhammer World really didn't make a difference. He could get where he wanted to go and then get back with ease. And with the dawn of movement 3 efficiency, the lad with movement 6 is king, provided they never ever get caught, and the only loss Anan took was due to someone bringing a slingshot Achillean king and went and murdered all of his lizards. It was cold, it was calculated, and it was effective, but every list has a weakness. But thankfully, despite that, Anan still landed 3rd place, and congratulations bud, well earned. In 2nd place, we have Charlie rocking the Unmade of all things. The Unmade are not really considered particularly competitive, so seeing them rock up and nab silver is awesome. This list is really strong on paper, and obviously it worked in execution. Blissful One with +1 strength is a really solid beater with incredible movement to back him up. He is expensive, but he is very strong if played well. The True Blood is also fantastic as an ally. The auto net on a double is beyond valuable, and his stats are also kind of great for his cost too. At the start of the show here has to be the Ogroid Myrmidon with +1 attack. This is a standard pick in many chaos lists for a reason. This guy's hard to kill, he kills pretty much everything, and he's just reliable. This warband is then backed up by a bunch of the basic ass unmade, the awakened one with flails and one guy rocking a polearm, which I assume is due to points. This list has a whopping 6 nets, one of which doesn't even need a roll to succeed. The plan here, I imagine, was to net everything that was a threat and then kill everything that wasn't with a combination of Myrmidon and Blissful One. In a pack that encouraged murder lists, having a way to turn off your opponent's murder before you feast on his chaff makes a lot of sense. I love this list and I want to see more of it. Now, I'm not prepared to butcher the French language, so I'm just going to put his name on screen and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I have no idea. This is a lad from France who I didn't get to play, but managed to talk to a little bit throughout the event. He really flexed with this list because he took Dark Oath. And frankly, Dark Oath, like the Unmade, are considered fairly low tier. There are better bases to build a chaos list from than Dark Oath, and really this is a kind of like a testament to his skills as a player and a list builder for sure. This list consists of a Slaughter Priest with Axe. This guy is all about pulling enemies into your guys from a hefty range, throw in a great defensive and offensive profile, and you've got yourself an excellent model. This is then backed up by Old Reliable, the Fomeroid Crusher with +1 attack. The combo is obviously great here. You move a thing you want dead with your priest and then you kill it with your crusher. With double attacking, you get 8 to 10 attacks and everything dies to that. Very few things can survive. It's disgusting, and the combo is tried, it's tested, it's wonderful, and I am glad to see it here. Moving on to the actual Dark Oath stuff itself, we have a Slaughterborn with Great Axe, and I suspect this is why he took Dark Oath to begin with, besides just liking the models and being a bit of a flex. This guy is an absolute unit. For 180 points, you get a 4-6-3-5 profile, which is kind of outstanding. Defensively, he is a standard bespoke, so toughness 4, 20 wounds. But he went in and buffed him up with extra wounds to make him stick around a lot longer. This lad, combined with the Brawly Priest and the Killy Crusher, leads to a very nasty 3-piece that clearly did a lot of work and killed an awful lot of things. But that's not all. We have the God Speaker, and I have always loved the God Speaker. They are super cheap, have a full powered Wizard Bolt for like 105 points. But they're made of paper, right? They come in with a wonderful double 2, which lets you generate more wild dice. She's fueling all the doubles this warband really wants to take advantage of, and I am all for that. This is a great piece, and yeah, awesome pick. Finally, we have the 3 chaff. These are just your standard chaff, honestly. The spear's range 2 with less toughness. The shields are tougher, but only have range 1. They're fine, they're just there to do chaffy stuff, like all chaff is, there to be number weight, right? This is a 7-man warband that is almost 1.5 pure threat. 3 decent chaff, and then 1 support piece with a nasty range attack. I can see why this did work, and with the right matchups, yeah, this thing isn't getting stopped. It's really cool to see Dark Oath top an event when Dark Oath are so often shunned like the Unmade. This is a huge, huge win for the game for me. Having the undercooked Hunters of Hawanshi in 3rd, the unplayed Unmade, and then the dastardly Dark Oath all hitting podium, especially when you consider the other warbands in the event. There was a bunch of Iron Jaws and Ogres and killy things that excel in this pack, and these 3 still made it to the top. That's really cool to see. And yeah, there was 40 plus players at this event, making it the 2nd largest Warcry event in the world ever. So I am not going to go over every single list, but I am going to pull some that I thought were really interesting, starting with William Zantor. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, but he is French, so I have butchered that and I apologize. This guy ran Cities of Sigmar, and he ran them in a way that I had not seen before this event, where a lot of people tend to focus on the reactionary play within the Cities of Sigmar. William just didn't. He brought an Achillean King with +1 damage, a Warhulk, an Errant Questor with Hammer who was rocking +1 move, 3 Steel Helms, and a War Surgeon. This list has 3 threats in the form of the King, the Hulk, and the Questor, a Wait to Heal, and then 3 Chief Chaff who can support each other and stick around. And they also work with the Hulk to do the cool reaction stuff that this is a Sigma are known for. Throw in the slingshot potential of the Questor to get that King around turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3, and you have yourself a list that can pressure super early and pressure for the rest of the game. The Questor with +1 move is really nice because it gives him all the tools he needs to move and catch up with the King and use thundering strides every turn. Being movement 10 functionally with a 6-inch reach allows him to get literally anywhere on the board and still support the King, and this guy is also nice and tough in terms of his defensive stats, and he hits hard thanks to his big old hammer, and makes up for the fact that his hammer's only ranged 1, so he can get into combat and start swinging even easier. There is a lot of bulk here, and it's nice to see someone take something so completely off the wall when you compare this to your standard cities list. And I can see this list being a template or basis to build and expand the way people play cities going forward, because counter control as it is not actually entirely proven yet within cities, but this guy nabbed 4th, so this is proven and it has the counter control in it, but it also has other tools that allows it to be proactive on the board, and I'm a huge fan of that. And of course, this guy is a good pilot. He handed Anan his only defeat, and he kicked my ass in round 2, so he certainly asserted his dominance over every other YouTuber at this event. Moving on, one of the coolest lists of the event had to be from my buddy Demetrius, running Slaves to Darkness, the list that centered around Ephelim the Unknowable and his band of misfits. This list is pure bulk, supported by one of the trickiest Bladeborn warbands around right now. 2 Chaos Warriors with shields, 2 aspiring champions make up the backbone of this list. These are very hard to shift, and in terms of the champions, they also hit pretty darn hard. Then we have Ephelim, who is a potent range threat and comes with 4 demons in this case. The trick with Ephelim's warband is the fact they can all teleport on doubles. You pick 2 dudes, you swap positions, and then you place them within 3 inches of that starting point, and this gives you a staggering amount of mobility and ways to get into and out of combat. It's also amazing for treasure missions because it's very hard to catch you when you're teleporting around the board all the time with demons who aren't carrying treasure. But that is not all. The demons themselves are all very interesting. Apotrax has a pull effect, allowing you to manipulate your opponent's board state similar to that Slaughter Priest. Flame Spooler has hands and can actually carry the treasure because most of these guys are actually beasts. And Spawnmaw is a pretty mid fighter who can buff himself to become a very serious threat at any moment. There is a lot of thinking that goes into playing this list, and frankly, after playing against it many times, there's a lot of thinking that goes into playing against it too. Demetrius goes into detail on how he made this list and how he played it in Atan's video, and I wholeheartedly recommend going to check out the video so you can hear from the man himself on how he crafted and did this list. Overall, this list came 19th, and after speaking to Demetrius after the event, before, after, and during, he made some mistakes when it came to piloting the list in the earliest portions of the event, and then he came right back and won 3 games major back to back to back. And I am really confident that he could take this exact list to the next event and absolutely smash it. He's a great player, this is an awesome list, but sometimes you just goof, and yeah, we all have those goofs from time to time, and I think this list could definitely go the distance. I am going to bring up this next list because I am a grumpy old man who is grumpy that NLE Demons is as stupid as NLE Demons is. I want to highlight how bonkers their lists can really get. If you remember, every other list we've talked about that had a Titan, like a Fomroid in it, they all hovered around 7 models. Pretty small warbands for sure, Not for NLE Demons. This list packed a buffed Spheranx, a buffed Funwide Crusher, a sloppy Bell Paper for movement, and then 6 Plague Bearers, and this list rolls in with a whopping 9 models. And whilst it didn't hit the top 10, it came pretty darn close, and it's pretty darn nasty to boot. That Spheranx is definitely the most interesting pick because it comes with all kinds of useful things it can do, and it gives the list more than just a I can smash things vibe. I hate it. I hate it with a passion, but I kind of love it at the same time. The list's really cool, and yeah, NLE Demons is ridiculous, and the fact they can make a list this big with this much like pressure and utility is kind of insane. I kind of love it, I kind of hate it. Had to bring attention to it, just had to. Now, the last list I want to talk about is from Elliot, and sadly I didn't get a chance to get the exact list Elliot ran, but I wanted to dedicate this little section to him and what he managed to pull off. This lad ran Skaven, he went with a few whips and a few rat ogres, a classic. This is a classic smash list, and it came in the mid-20s overall. He went 2 and 3, and I just wanted to congratulate the lad on an event well done. Elliot was a kid who approached me in Bugman's right before the event started with his dad, asked for a picture, and we just started talking about Warcry. He popped over after each of his games. Turns out I'm a pretty slow player, so he was always done first, and just asked me how my game was going, how games had went, and how his games went as well. Elliot was the star of the show because despite being one of the first ever competitive events he had been to, he still managed to nab 2 major wins. He was super polite, a total joy to talk to. Elliot, man, if you're watching this, keep on being an absolute legend. You did amazingly. Keep on pushing through, keep on getting those wins, keep on practicing. You will absolutely achieve great things in Warcry if you keep trying. And honestly, you did amazingly in this event, so top marks for you. Awesome stuff. So what did I think of the event overall? Despite the rather unpleasant encounter in round 4, this event was outstanding. The number of people who attended was awesome, the mission pack was a lot of fun, and the lists were all kind of great. Warcry is clearly getting bigger, and I hope that it continues to grow. It seems like Games Workshop are noticing an uptick in competitive Warcry players, and this should hopefully lead to more events in the future, better mission packs, and maybe some more competitive support in general. We just got the Scales of Talaxis as a mission pack, and for the most part that's a damn fun pack. More of that please. Once again, it seems the UK meta is a little bit softer than our North American counterparts. The codebook is a very kill-centric pack, and we didn't get many of the major kill factions. Ogres were mostly absent bar Gorgas, Stormcasts were mostly absent as well bar Questor, Iron Jaws were there but one player almost bottomed out, and the other, my buddy Warboss Kurgan, plays close at the top, which is awesome to see. But having Corvus Cabal, Dark Oath, Unmade, all hit the top 10, 2 of those hit top 3, and 1 of them win the whole event is really interesting. And of course, those lists did follow the standard Chaos template of Chaff plus Big Ally, but it goes to show that that template works, and it can be applied to less than ideal bases. Once again, there weren't many Caradon Overlord players as well. I believe there was only 1, and frankly, I am all for that. Keep that nonsense far away from me. There was also a distinct lack of Soulblight, which is odd because the last event was heavily saturated with them, so that's kind of interesting. And finally, seeing so many people play Vulcan Flameseekers, man, that was great. Short Kings uniting to do the Lord's work. You just love to see it. And then finally, moving away from all that nitty gritty stuff, it was awesome just to meet more people and catch up with people that I'd met from the last event. It's always kind of surreal to be recognized, and as a heavily introverted human being, this stuff will likely never become second nature. I just want to give a big old shout out to Demetrius for being my big beautiful Scottish support network, man. I definitely wouldn't have the confidence to actually be out there and talking with people if he wasn't there being absolutely awesome. He's also a phenomenal painter, so check out his Instagram for some eye candy. Once again, links in the description. And before I sign off, I am going to throw up some pictures from the event I took, as well as pictures that Demetrius kindly sent my way. Enjoy the picture show. And that's the end of the video. I never really know what to talk about when I'm doing these and how much time I should dedicate to each part, but we did it. We're here, we're at the end. I am just not a number crunchy guy, and looking at stats hurts my brain. I am just too stupid for that kind of stuff, but I hope this video gave you some insight into the event and how it went, and you know, all that good stuff. If you like what you saw, please consider leaving a like, a comment and subscribing. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons and members who help support the channel, and a massive shout out to my algorithmic demon slayers, Armor Enthusiast 7, Brioche, CT6497, Girth Demon, The Head Knight of Paint, Heinz D, Kiplang, Long Run Hobbies, Lord Fireaxe, Tough Tootin' Baby and Velas. Until next time, lads, ladies, and everyone in between and beyond, ta-ra.